Let's talk some chess. This game was played in 1884 between William Robert Ballard and Joseph George Fagan. Unfortunately, we don't have any information other than that I could find, so no pictures of these two gentlemen, or don't know where this game was played. It is an odds game, so we can see that Mr. Ballard is a stronger player. He's given up his knight on b1 to try to make the game a bit more fair, but that's all we know. So very exciting game. Nonetheless, let's get right into it. We have e4 from Ballard, e5 by Fagan, and f4 by Ballard, sort of a king's gambit idea, just without a pawn, without a knight on b1. Pawn captures, going for the king's gambit, and now knight to f3 by Fagan. By Ballard. Bishop to e7, bishop to c4, kind of the main idea behind the king's gambit is you get some rapid development in the center, and now bishop to h4 by Fagan. And you can sort of already see, you don't really want to move a piece twice in the opening, especially when your opponent is down material. There's no need to be delivering these checks and sort of going for these kind of counters. Here, Ballard just blocks with a pawn on g3. We have pawn takes and kingside castle by Ballard, which looks a little bit gutsy with all this action going around on the king side, but it's totally fine. Knight to h6, and now d4, really expanding and controlling in the center. We have kingside castle, h takes on g3, bishop takes on g3, and now king to g2. And this king is actually, it looks very scary because there's no pawns anymore, but this king is quite safe. There are squares to run to sort of after this bishop moves away. The bishop can't retreat to h4 and keep this diagonal cut off because the knight is protecting h4. So it's much safer than it looks. The bishop retreats to d6, and now rook to h1, getting the rook lined up with the knight on h6. Queen to f6 now, getting the queen into the game, attacking this pawn on d4 and the knight, although the knight is defending the pawn and the king is defending the knight. And now e5 by Ballard. And this looks like a terrible fork that Fagan just ran into. The bishop and the queen are attacked by the pawn, but this is very easy to get out of after queen to g6 with check. The king retreats back to f2. And now actually knight to f5. Instead of moving away the bishop, first you have this knight to f5 move, and you can't just capture the bishop here because of this knight to g3 forking the king and the rook, and now this would be a tough attack to deal with. So instead, Ballard just plays rook to g1, getting out of the fork, preventing this knight to g3 with check, and also attacking Fagan's queen on g6, which will be a very important fixture in this position, that the queen is attacked by the rook. So here we have we still have this knight to g3 check. This is still a fine move. You block the rook from the queen. You obviously deliver check, and you get the knight into the game. Here we get king to f2. Now the king and the rook are attacking the knight, and of course the knight is pinned to the queen, so you have to be a little bit careful here, but the correct move is played, which is knight to e4, maintaining the tempo, checking the king, so you can't, of course, take the queen with the rook. King back to e1, bishop now to b4, so releasing the bishop from the attack of this pawn on e5. The bishop is checking the king, and now Ballard just blocks with the pawn on c3. But now we get knight takes on c3, pawn takes on c3, and of course bishop check on c3. So again, just really Fagan doing a good job of not giving Ballard a single move to take the queen on g6. Here, instead of blocking, which I guess you just capture, Ballard doesn't want to trade down his pieces and instead plays king to f2 and now protects his rook, although I guess it was already protected. So, but now it's protected 3 times by the king, the queen, and the knight, so ignore me. And now we finally have queen to c6, moving away from the attack of the rook. So we're at a bit of an equilibrium now, but this is a pretty crazy position. Already Ballard has given away 5 of his pawns. He has 3 pawns left, and that, kind of makes his pieces super active. This bishop on c1 has not moved, but it's like amazing the range of this bishop for a piece that hasn't moved. The rook is very nice on the g file, the knight is very nice on f3, whereas Fagan's pieces are all stuck on the 8th rank and not entering the game anytime soon. So bishop to d3 here by Ballard. The bishop was attacked by the queen and it was undefended, so you have to move it, but now the bishop eyes this f7 pawn, which is a very nice feature, and now I should have mentioned, the bishop was hanging and the rook was hanging. You have to choose between both of them. Ballard correctly says that this bishop is better than this rook. This rook is not getting into the game anytime soon, whereas this bishop has great control over the board. So bishop to d3, sacrificing the rook on a1, but now d5 by d5 by Ballard attacking the queen. And I forget what the I know what the problem is now. You can't just take the pawn, because then bishop takes on h7 with check. After the king captures, you pick up a free queen. So of course Fagan does not go for that. He goes for queen to b6, checking Ballard's king on f2, and now Ballard just plays bishop to e3, attacking the queen back. So Fagan plays queen to b2, checking the king from the second rank. King to f1, we have f5 now. I don't really know what this f5 move is. Maybe wants to get the rook into the game somehow, or I don't know, put some more pressure. But these pieces definitely should be entering the game. They should be developed and help with the attack. And here Ballard starts to set up his wonderful kind of idea here with bishop to d4, attacking the queen. The knight is defending the bishop, so the queen cannot capture back. Instead, we have queen takes on a2, picking up a pawn. Unfortunately, this is actually too materialistic. The correct move is actually to accept this kind of trade and take the bishop on d4. After knight takes, bishop takes, and now, even though you're down a queen, you're still up material. Fagan is still up material. He has 2 rooks, 2 bishops, and a knight against a bishop, a rook, and a queen. So if we do the math, which I will do slowly, yeah, he has a rook, a knight, and a bishop for a queen, and that's more than enough to win. So giving up the queen is the right move here. But he doesn't. He takes the pawn, and now Ballard only has 2 pawns left on the board, and this allows a trade, or capturing the bishop on c1, which Fagan does. So capturing the bishop now on a1. Queen takes on d5. So just capturing all the pawns. So essentially, Fagan here made the decision, instead of giving up the queen, he's like, I'm going to capture these 2 pawns and give up my bishop for it. So queen takes, bishop takes, queen takes on d5. And this is actually a great square for the queen, because it threatens the knight on f3, which forces Ballard's queen to sort of stay in defense of this knight, because you don't want Fagan's queen taking the knight on f3 with check. So anyways, we have e6 here by Ballard. He has given away all of his pawns. He's trying to give away the last pawn, but instead of accepting, we have g6 here by Fagan, and this is a strange move. Gives the bishop on a1 even more range to control all of these important squares, and now Ballard says, I'm going to keep marching my pawn if you're going to ignore it. e7, threatening to promote or capture the rook, so you have to block. Rook to e8, but now we'll wait to pause. Now queen to e2 by Ballard, protecting the pawn on e7, and now this is actually a really strange position, but it's totally fine for Fagan if he plays the proper move. Unfortunately, he doesn't. He plays queen to c5, and now Ballard takes advantage of this and plays what's the winning move, basically the winning move. So take a couple of seconds and see if you can find the move here with the white pieces to essentially get to a winning position and win the game. Okay, so the critical part behind this queen to c5 move is that you've abandoned the pressure that the queen is putting on the knight. So the proper move here is just to play b5, prepare to get the bishop out, get some sort of attack going. But once you move the queen away, Ballard's queen no longer has to worry about defending this knight, because there's no more queen takes with check threat. So here the proper move, hopefully you found it, is queen to b2, and now you are threatening checkmate on g7, a terrible check on h8 that will surely lead to checkmate, because the bishop and the queen are lined up. So Fagan notices, of course, he notices this and tries to prevent it. The first threat is this checkmate on g7, so he prevents that and captures the passed pawn with rook takes on e7. But now Ballard just plays the other check, which is queen to h8. The king has 1 square to move to. That square is f7. But now see if you can finish the game with Ballard while I give you another second. Okay, so kind of an unheralded piece, this game, but it delivers the finishing blow. It is knight to g5, and this is actually checkmate in 1. The knight is checking the king, the queen and bishop are taking off this diagonal. The knight is also covering the important e6 square, which is crucial, and the queen is covering the 8th rank, and the game is over. But what's amazing about this position is Ballard has 0 pawns on the board. There are no pawns, He gave away all the pawns, but all that matters, of course, is that he checkmated his opponent. And I think what's awesome is that Ballard uses the lack of pawns to his advantage. These pieces are all in wonderfully open space. They're controlling a ton of squares, whereas Fagan's pieces, he has a ton of pawns. He's only lost one pawn, but the pawns are all restricting the movement and control of his pieces. Not the knight, of course, but the rook and the bishop. And so kind of, if you just trained on this game and you just watched this game, you would think pawns are bad. You would be like, I have to give away my pawns because I need to get my pieces out onto an open board to control all these squares. So, of course, that's not the case. You want to use your pawns to your advantage. Fagan here should have obviously just developed his pieces instead of keeping them on the 8th rank the whole game. But nonetheless, an exciting game from 1884. So hope you enjoyed it. Drop a like, drop a subscribe. Let me know of other games you'd like me to review, and we'll see you next time.